Welcome to Shake Out Your Sleeves and Go, support for discovering deep joy through the subtle profundity of the Zen way. I'm Dosho, and I'm here today with my friend and colleague Teshin Sweger. Roshi. We'll be talking about the koan way in general and the record of going easy case 4, the world honored one, points to the ground, points to the earth in this translation. Teshin Roshi is the teacher and resident priest, and he actually is a resident. I notice a lot of people out there, they say they're the resident, but they don't live there. I don't know what that means. But Teshin actually lives there at the North Carolina Zen Center. I've seen it myself. He has been practicing Zen since 1993, mostly with the Rochester Zen Center system established by Kapla Roshi. He was ordained in 2004 by Lawson Schachter Roshi, given Dharma transmission by Seven Ross Roshi, and Inkashome from James Milne Ford Roshi. He has continued his koan training with Henry Schuckman and Valerie Fortsman of Sanbo Zen, and occasionally does guest teaching at the Mountain Cloud Zen Center as well. Teshin also works as a part-time psychotherapist. Welcome, Teshin. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Good to be here, and thank you for, as we were saying off camera, for wading into the podcast territory here.
So far, it's fun. Hey, you really get around there with Lawson and Seven and James.
I was just thinking that lots of Roshis, right?
Lots of Roshis. We kind of ran out with Roshis with Henry. I suppose we should have said Henry Schuckman Roshi, and Valerie, I think, Fortsman Sensei, right?
No, I just don't know what if titles seem to be less used in the Sambo school. Uh-huh. But officially, they may be both Roshis.
I hope
but they're both. I think what they call it in Sambo Zen, they are both authentic Zen masters, or sort of the top tier in terms of their teaching.
Well, if they're authentic Zen masters, then I want to have them both here too. So I'll be inviting. I've already been in communication with Henry, but we'll see if Valerie will come and do one of these too. So let me give the case, and then we'll get into some conversation. This one's a nice short case, so kind of characteristic of the Zen school with such concentrated teaching. In, what is it, maybe 100 words. The world-honored one, walking with the assembly, pointed his finger to the earth and said, "Here is an appropriate place to found a monastery." Indra, the creator god of that Indian cosmology, took one stem of grass, stuck it in the earth, and said, "Indeed, the monastery is already founded." The world-honored one smiled.
Yeah. What a beautiful case.
Yeah.
As I was writing to you through email, these first 4 cases in the Shoyoroku, really bring forth these Indian ancestors, right? Bodhidharma and Prajnatara, and of course the Buddha in case 1 and case 4. So we kind of get hit right across the heads with these large figures,
Yeah. Well, how do you see that? Why do you think they're doing it that way?
Well,
What's the point?
I can't pretend to understand the mind of these folks, but it's just a good reminder of where our tradition comes from, and it's that the Zen project is not divorced from Buddhism and its Buddhist roots. It's certainly not dependent on that, but arises out of.
Mm-hmm. Not dependent in terms of the Bodhidharma statement. Is that what you're thinking? It's not related to words and text. Yeah.
Yeah, and as well as history and any kind of tradition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, good point. And the next one is Qingyuan, who's the seventh ancestor, the first ancestor really in the Saodong Soto line. So there is a kind of a credentialing or an establishing, I don't mean credentialing negative, but, framing the tradition. And then Matsu, I think. So it's like, it is really kind of, drawing things clearly about what this is about.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and these first four cases are so straightforward too. I mean, like you said, this case four is just, what, 100 words or less, like you said, but it's such a direct koan. And yet, I think and maybe we'll talk about that, I think people can easily go astray with what its fundamental point is.
Well, let's do that. Let's go with your thought there. So say more about that.
Well, I think, well, first of all, I think with all the subsequent koans that the fundamental point is to live from what they're teaching, right? So, a student that's working on these subsequent koans in this well into their koan training, the Shoyoroku, they should be living from this bright light. Not just kind of presenting answers in the koan, in the Doksan room. So, I think that's an easy place to forget, perhaps, is that we may present the right, so-called right answer or demonstrate something that would be approved by a Zen teacher in the Doksan room. But, if that's not being lived from, then what is the point really? But specifically, I think in this case, it could be, that I think it's pretty straightforward that, this temple, this monastery, as you have it in your translation, or, I've heard it translated as sanctuary, that it's right here. It's everywhere. But really, I think that's an important teaching point, I would say, or maybe practice point, or, but the fundamental point, I think, is to really understand fully what that blade of grass really, what the nature of that blade of grass really is. So I think the fundamental point is that, to really understand the nature of this single blade of grass, or for that matter, the smile of Shakyamuni's smile, or the gesture itself. If we really get what the implications of that, Yamada Koen Roshi used to say, all is one, one is all. And if we really understand that and live from that, I mean, then I think we can move to case 5. But I think the mistake is just to say, everything is a temple. It's like a bumper sticker.
Right.
Everything's a sanctuary. I should be present like I would be if I were to walk into a monastery or temple or sanctuary. Well, that doesn't reach it.
Yeah, being present doesn't reach it.
Yes. What are we present? What are we present to? I think is what's most important, don't you?
So, what kind of present to reaches it?
Well, that's for the Doksan room, I would say.
Don't show me, though. Tell me for our interview.
Right. Yeah. That, well, like I said, that the truth that. This story we were sharing through email of Siddhana, this practitioner in the Buddha's time, and him on a practice journey, going to see all of these various teachers, really looking for this true way, and then coming to see Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Mm. And I think, as I recall the story, Manjushri asks him to go find something that is to bring him medicine, right? And he comes back and he says, I can't find anything that is not medicine.
Right. That
right?
there's a blade of grass in there too somewhere.
Yeah. But then he
I
said,
hadn't thought of that together with this going. Yeah.
yeah, but then he says, bring me this medicine. And he plucks a blade of grass and hands it
Right.
to Manjari,
Right.
right? The whole world is medicine, as one of our ancestors said too,
Yeah.
right?
That's important. No, and I appreciate also what you were saying about where you could go wrong with this is having an idea about it, basically, and so it becomes a subject-object division, which isn't radiating the great light. Did I understand that correctly?
Right, exactly. Yeah, lots of ideas, right? I mean, that's the enticing thing about Zen is it's got lots of cool ideas. And it's a trap. It's a trap, and the masters all knew that, right?
So in ideas, you're also talking about stories. You can, yeah.
Yeah,
So
stories, but even this whole idea of which I think you touched in your last interview with Melissa, which is this practice of mindfulness, But I really appreciate like Da Hui, who was talked about mindlessness. Yeah.
that infidel.
Yeah, yeah, truly an infidel. Yeah.
So there's something, so you work as a psychotherapist, so people have stories, right? And here's a story, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so what's the difference between working with stories in the psychological context and working with this kind of story?
Yeah. I don't know that these. You mean the koan as a story, or the Manjushri? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're a kind of narrative. There's a narrative frame.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting what you said about my being a psychotherapist and working with people's stories. I mean, that's very true. I was thinking about this, about koans and what they are a kensho, which this true seeing one's nature and what this is really about. And I was thinking about that in terms of psychotherapy practice. And I thought, recently, this may be kind of strange, but, Kensho, I think is kind of a trauma in a sense. A trauma is a disturbing, something that just is really one definition it's a disturbing event,
And it disturbs the self.
Absolutely, it's a blow. It's a crushing blow to this story of me, and in that way, I think it is a trauma, but it heals. It doesn't, it heals. It doesn't hurt. After a Kensho experience, that experience can turn into a story, a memory, something we just go back to and retell. If we're not careful. And so like with trauma work in psychotherapy, we're helping the patient integrate the story into their ordinary life so it doesn't produce this kind of, reactivity internally. But I think with Kensho, post-Kensho training, we have to integrate as well. Otherwise it just, becomes calcified or just it's kind of living from this just the story of it. But so the integration is kind of similar, if that makes sense.
Is it? That's what, as you talked about that, I was wondering, or is it somehow, I'm not exactly clear on this, but in a way it seems like it's opposite.
Well, yes, it is. I just mean that integration itself.
In the sense of integration,
Yeah.
both with a past psychological trauma and a Dharma trauma.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the integration is different. The type of integration is different, but anyhow, I think it's just a different way of looking at it. And
No, I think that's very interesting. So one of the things that that I asked, and I asked James this, and I think we've talked about this since then about the transformation. Where is that? Yeah, the way I have the question here is, what transformation do you see in the lives of people who have kenshoed through the koan way? Yeah. So, and James was like, well, not very much. But, and I mean, maybe that's, I thought afterwards, like, that there's no transformation.
Ultimately speaking,
yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's why sometimes these experiences of kensho comes with this great laugh, kind of a laugh or a kind of a, it's that nothing has changed and yet everything has. It's just, to really see the fundamental, well, what would you say, that there is nothing that needs to be truly done, it has to be really realized. It can't just be, again, another slogan that we hear, and we can't just try to make that happen in our life. Like, there's nothing to be done, there's nothing to do, so therefore I'll just sit here like a bump on a log kind of thing. But when it's truly realized, that itself is just unbelievable. So transformation, I think, in that way, it's still very transformative. But I would say that the transformation that I see in people depends on the degree to which they really have seen this indivisible nature. So perhaps a lot of kenshos aren't that deep, but when they are, the transformation is quite profound.
So what is it that influences whether the kensho is deep or shallow, for lack of a better word?
You mean as far as causes and conditions? I mean,
so you've got one person who has a really deep kensho and one person that doesn't. What's going on? What's the phenomena that's unfolding there?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I can't say. First of all, to be honest, I haven't worked with that many people that have kenshoed. It's not an everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
It's and in my own training, I certainly knew people that were working on subsequent koans, but we didn't really talk intimately about how that experience changed them, because in my training as a student, it was kind of discouraged to talk openly about those experiences.
Yeah, and although there is the negative side then of really each of us just having one example ourselves.
Right.
But on the other hand, talking about it too soon is problematic. Do you agree? I mean, then it's just about selfing, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the downsides, the shadow sides or downsides of it could become something special or something that differentiates one from others. And of course, that is completely contrary to what Kensho is really showing us.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, don't let that get in the way.
Right. Yeah. Somehow it doesn't. I mean, or somehow it does get in the way over and over again. I don't know why, but Hakuin himself, right, got quite boastful. After.
Right. Well, and of course, there's like personality variables or something there. I don't know if the Hakuin personality could do anything but be
this is true, very true.
Huge and extreme, But in his case, at least it burned itself up.
Yeah. And I think that just is like any experience in life as we mature as people, And so I feel that when it happens early in one's life, perhaps that if somebody opens early without a lot of practice experience, I think that there's a lot more maturing that has to happen. I think that people that have these experiences later in life, perhaps they integrate them with a little more ease.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% on that. Again, there's no formula with these things.
I think there's something to that. I mean, but as I would think you'd agree that psychological maturity isn't necessarily related with age. So,
True enough, true enough.
but at the same time, if somebody sticks with the practice, those things get digested, I think.
Yeah.
If they don't stick with it, then it can get kind of stuck and be problematic in a lot of ways. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think more than one experience is necessary. I mean, it's not a one and done kind of thing.
and I agree. And in the literature, it's kind of standard that there be two significant breakthroughs at least.
Yes.
So. I want to come back and the question isn't exactly formulated, but I think it's I think important that you mentioned that you haven't worked with that many people who have had kensho, who have kenshoed, probably better as a verb, right? But because it's a difficult process.
It is. I mean,
And kind of rare for somebody for the bottom to really drop out.
yeah, I mean, of course, you hear about these rare cases where somebody comes to their first weekend sesshin and boom, yeah, I've heard of those cases, but for most people, lots of hard work and really putting everything they've got into it. And so that's one of my dilemmas, just kind of maybe turning a little bit, because I know in your email, you were hinting at the center here and what we're doing here. And
you're establishing a monastery, a temple, a sanctuary, however you want to translate it.
Right, right. And one of the changes, as you know, in the last few years for me was becoming a dad. And so what that has really changed what I can personally offer here, at the center as far as rigorous, intense training. So of course we do sashins throughout the year, but I would love to offer more, but that may have to wait for a little while until I have a little more space. But I guess the point is that most likely people need lots and lots of sashin practice.
Is there an alternative?
Well, certainly people say daily life practice, but aside from these rare cases, I have yet to see how that really plays itself out without deep retreat practice.
And daily life practice, you mean zazen in daily life, or are you referring to more than that?
Well, of course, daily zazen, but with koan practice, as I'm sure you know, obviously, is that the koan has to become present from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep. It has to be there in one's mind. It doesn't always have to be in the forefront of one's mind, but it has to be operating. What is mu, for example? What is mu? I want to know. It has to be disturbing one. It has to be niggling at one or prying at one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the great doubt aspect, right? I think we've talked about this, but Gogu talks about it as wonderment. And I think Jeff Shore does too, which I like that nuance. I think it's important, but there's also this aspect that you're talking about that I don't think wonderment really gets at.
Yeah, wonderment, I too like that. It's the wonderment of a child, that kind of open curiosity. But to be honest with you, that for most people, that fades after childhood, and it's very hard to ignite. I think we touch into that when the mind clears through retreat practice, sesshin practice. There can be a sense of wonderment or awe or curiosity. When we look out after, day 4 of sesshin and everything is brilliant, everything is crisp. But that's not kensho. That's just this kind of wonderment.
It's a good sashimi.
It's a good machine, right,
Yeah.
right. But more often, I think it is that just how the koan disturbs one that is most important.
Right.
Because that disturbing feeling is what partially leads to the need for resolution. Because who the hell wants to walk around all the time being disturbed?
Yeah.
And so it demands, I need to resolve this. I mean, it's like when you've put your car keys on the table and they're not there, you're disturbed and you won't stop until you find them.
Well, I think, some people find another way,
Yeah, take a taxi or
I'll order a new set of keys.
order a set of keys. Right. Exactly. I really like that because it speaks to how we try to put off that nagging sense of doubt. Right.
Similar though about you seem to, I mean, yeah, I think you you were going to say something about doing the koan, you and your group together, taking a blade of grass or a 2x4
Yes.
and building a new zendo, which
Yeah.
you're about to engage in. So how do you see this? What does this koan say to you in that way?
Yeah. Well, we have to be careful because establishing a practice center, a Zen center, a monastery, yes, we need places to practice and gather and support one another in our quest, so to speak. But I have seen where that becomes the project, which the building, the administering, the book clubs, the movie nights, all that becomes the tail wagging the dog, right? In other words, using James's term, the project of awakening. Yeah, that's not I kind of like that term, but the project of awakening becomes secondary or tertiary or not there at all. And so one of the things have said to our board and to all of our members is that we have to be careful that doesn't happen here. Right? That first and foremost, this new zendo that we're hoping to build is so that people can wake up.
Yeah, that blade of grass, grass often represents delusion or the world of, diversity and the blooming of diversification, but it also is delusion. So, and it's Indra who likes to trip,
It likes to trip, yeah.
That's planting this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but as it says in the verse for the koan, that the 10,000 grasses, right? I don't know what your translation of that is.
Yeah, I don't have it here.
There's a reference to those, the 10,000 grasses or the.
Oh, here it is. I do have it. On the tips of the 100 grasses, spring without boundary.
There it is. So even, on the tips of the 100 grasses, delusion or not, that too is it.
Well, in the second line, now that you got the verse going, trusting the hand that grasps, coming to use it intimately.
Yeah, of course.
There it is. So that's what you all got to do. It's so clear.
So clear.
It's just that.
Yeah, right. If it was just so clear to everybody, yeah. Again, the devil's in the details, or it's so easy to forget.
Right. And then also, I mean, I think there's the difficulty, like you said, with koans and kensho, being the point, not the koan, but with kensho taking a lot of difficult work, and yet you've got this organization to run. And so if nobody's having kensho, well, that gets a little bit of a Debbie Downer kind of thing. So let's pass a few people.
Yeah, right. Of course. That's the one of the, I suppose, one of the temptations, but I refuse to go down that road. I just, don't see how it ultimately benefits anybody. I once was talking to Henry years ago, Henry Schuckman, about Mountain Cloud, and we were sharing how, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time to run a center, and there's a lot of care that goes into this, into the place itself, right? But he said, frankly, if Mountain Cloud burned down tomorrow, yeah, he would be sad, but really, it's not about the place,
Exactly.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too. And so that kind of integrity and hopelessness is what is really important for a teacher, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you as a teacher, I would say you're tasked with holding the integrity. I think as a teacher, you're holding a lot. You're holding, you're holding the very truth that everybody that walks through the Doksan room door is Buddha, right? They may not see that. They may not know that for themselves, and so until they do, I think we're holding that. We keep reminding them of that over and over and over again. It's not to convince them of that truth, but it's to encourage them to uncover that truth for themselves. And we're also holding this as lineage holders. I think we're tasked with making sure that the standards don't creep down further and further, which I know happens in some koan traditions, right, where someone might simply have a kind of a oneness experience or a samadhi type of experience and be passed on koan, an initial koan.
I want you to come back and we'll pick a koan and we'll go into that point.
Yeah.
Sometime I'm not thinking right now what a good koan would be for that, but I think that's so important, such an important point about the koan way, that I'd like to do a whole talk about just that. How about one last thing? What's one important thing that you wanted to say that you haven't said yet?
Well, initially when you sent me the questions, it's like, why practice koans? Because it's a good question. And but first, I think when somebody comes through and starts working with me, I want to know why they're practicing in general. What's driving them, because that will determine if koans are right for them. The disease, the medicine has to fit the disease, right? So breath practice is a beautiful practice, and I think anybody is suitable for breath practice, or breath practice is suitable for anybody. But for koans, really for them to take hold and to really work, you have to have that drive. You have to have some sort of dissatisfaction, question, doubt, or whatever, as we were talking about before. And it's in that way, it's not right for everybody, So I would never say, yeah, come on in, just work on a koan.
So well-adjusted people should not do koans.
That's right. Well, it's kind of true, If you're that well-adjusted, you're not going to find yourself at a Zen center, most likely.
Yeah, why go? Yeah.
Why go? Why go? Right, yeah. Right. Certainly people do. I think people come to practice, just come to a Zen center like this or your place, your group, hoping that they're just going to sort of learn some skills to support their life as it is. But Zen is fundamentally uprooting our life as it is.
Right. No, I think that's very important too. And then people coming and saying, I want a practice that works for me.
Yes.
So then it's just all about the self project. So
right. Like,
somehow that has to, because that's the root of suffering. So but I want to do more of it. I want to do it now with robes. Is that okay? Can I do that? And if we say yes, it doesn't really. It's disconnected from the tradition and the point of this practice.
Yeah, people come here for all kinds of reasons, and I support that in the most basic way. I'll never say, you're not welcome because you're here just to get a little peace of mind or de-stress. I mean, certainly the door's open to everybody, and we have to start somewhere, right? And oftentimes that's the case, but then their aspiration deepens, it changes over time, and I think that's important to recognize that not everybody walks through the door burning, with the hair on fire, kind of,
Right, and
So
given the times and etc., it makes complete sense that people are looking for some kind of lifeline of some kind, a life preserver. I just, I'm doing introductory sessions. People often, I just want to have a little peace of mind. Can you do something so I just can stop thinking a little bit, at 2 a.m.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's totally understandable.
Well, these little devices in our pockets are
Yeah.
really screwing with us in ways that I don't think the old masters had any clue. Certainly these are creations of our mind, so in that way that's not different. But yeah, we're at the mercy of this attention economy, and so I find myself kind of doing a lot of rudimentary work with people, how to stay with something,
Right.
and that's another prerequisite for koan work before I will, agree to work with somebody on a koan, is they have to have a degree of concentrative ability, sustained concentration. Yeah.
Yeah. And, also stick with itness in daily life. So settledness, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of the established habit of a stable life.
Yes, yes, and also, before I forget, a willingness and an ability to work with a teacher, to be in relationship. And a lot of people that practice Zen, they get scared by they're terrified of being in real relationship and
Right.
putting themselves on the line. That
Well, there's kind of a contradiction, isn't there? On the one hand, we're like, come and sit down and be quiet for hours and then be in relationship. So it's like people that are like, when they hear come and sit down and be quiet for hours, they're like, yeah, a lot of times we're not the ones that are like really good at relationship. So there's a lot of learning to do in that way of how to be in a relationship with a teacher, which, is necessary for this work.
Yes, yes, we have that kind of sit down and be quiet, but if it becomes an escape, of course, from
Right.
relationship or life, then we're just colluding with people. Yeah, yeah, we're just
People's avoidance.
well,
Right.
yeah, they're avoidance strategies, and Zen can become, or not true Zen practice, but going to a Zen center or monastery or whatever can become an avoidance strategy. So yeah, that all has to be put under the microscope. And truly, you can't escape relationship anyway. You can try, but you can't. We're always in relationship. That's what this koan's about. I mean,
It is. Yeah. It is a relationship.
yeah.
A pleasure to talk with you, Teshin. Thank you for coming and doing this. And we have this little quirky tradition about shaking out our sleeves and going. So let's shake out our sleeves.